Celeste is a game I had heard endless praise over, almost to the same level as Undertale. An indie game that emotionally invested the player, isn't too long, and will challenge me from beginning to end? Oh, I've gotta see this. I don't know why I slept on this game for so long. Maybe I was just busy with other things? 2018 was a weird year for me, and being that the game released in, well, 2018, January 25th to be specific, developed by Matt Makes Games and supported on Linux, Windows, Mac, PS4, Xbox One, and Switch, I guess it makes sense that I didn't jump on it as soon as it was released. Planned on playing it, but never got around to it until I bought a bunch of indie games for the sake of my indie marathon on my Nintendo Switch. Not much of a marathon now after my Gunvolt video bombed, but that's okay because here we are now with Celeste, another 2D platformer. Another tough as nails 2D platformer. Crap, this video is gonna bomb too, isn't it? I was excited about going into this. Keep in mind that this was my first time through the game. Didn't know much about it, minus the fact that you play as a girl named Madeline, and the game's story talks about the heavy subject matter of mental illness, reportedly handling it well. Also that it's a hard as hell platformer in the same vein as Super Meat Boy. Many even saying that it handles that aspect better than the Meaty Boy. Expectations were high going into this, and how could they not be? Just about all my online friends praised the game to no end, and it got nominated for Game of the Year. An indie game standing alongside the likes of Red Dead 2 and God of War? That's inspiring if nothing else, but if an indie title was able to stand out to the AAA biased judges of the Game Awards, that had to have meant the game's good, right? Was the game amazing? Or did I raise my hopes up too high and the game wasn't as good to me, making me nervous to put out this review for fear of pissing people off for having a different opinion because it's impossible to express yourself in this society if it doesn't fall in line with the mindset of the general public? No. Not at all. I love this game. It's really good, though for different reasons than I was expecting. Now, the story wasn't all too surprising because it's pretty straightforward. You play as a Canadian chick named Madeline who wants to climb the mountain we call Celeste. Roll credits? Not yet? Alright, sorry. Why does she want to climb the mountain? Well, as we find out, it's a personal journey to help her overcome her anxiety and depression as well as face her inner self.
No! You're not me!
She meets a handful of memorable characters along the way, but the main story is a personal journey in Madeline's growth as she overcomes the continuously difficult mountain and deals with her mental health issues. I don't want to go so far as to call it simple, but it's definitely not complicated, not even a little. And that's okay, because for what it wants to do, it does well. They give us a relatable protagonist through how she talks to others and how real her inner struggles are, making us, the player, want to see her overcome her challenges. Add in a couple of more side characters as sprinkles on top and you've got a clean formula for success. But in all honesty, I may have set my expectations a bit too high for how good I expected this story to be, because everyone would constantly say how good it handles mental illness. I thought it handled the topic decently, but it was nothing crazy or anything in-depth enough to be lauded as something fantastic in my eyes. Now don't get me wrong, I find it satisfying enough that a game's even talking about something like this, let alone doing it well in the first place. But there are definitely ways we can go about this better, be it giving the character more time to struggle with it and gradually grow past the difficulties it provides narratively. The thing is, this game isn't narratively driven, so it doesn't have the time to do all that, nor does it want to. Besides the fact that this game takes about 10 hours to beat, it's also a 2D platformer that doesn't put story in the forefront like almost every other title in the genre. So why then? Why does this story stick out so much and regardless of my critiques, works so well? That's because the game expertly intertwines the story and gameplay, allowing the two to work together in order to strengthen both aspects. This game is hard as nails and it ain't hard to tell. Look at the freaking footage I'm showing you. Fortunately, it's like Super Meat Boy, not only in its difficulty level, but making said challenges in short bursts, rather than normal sized levels featuring Kaizo difficulty. Most of Celeste's obstacle courses will be on a single screen that can get a little lengthy every now and then, but rarely to the point where it's frustrating. Being that you die in one hit no matter what and are sent back to the start of the screen 99% of the time, this is a necessity because I know darn well I'd lose my mind if challenges started getting too long. Yes, there is such a thing as too hard in video games, because constantly facing difficult challenges without being encouraged or rewarded enough can be quite frustrating. But Celeste focuses on the former a lot, and it works. The game is always telling the player that they can do it if they keep going at it. Keep trying that challenging part, you'll overcome it soon, and if you can't, just take a break and try it again. And really listen to that piece of advice, take breaks. The challenge can wear on you if you play for too long, which you may end up doing because the game's that fun. Just make sure you give yourself some time to breathe. And if things are still tough, the game even has assist mode to help those players who aren't the greatest when it comes to video games get that push across the finish line. The game isn't trying to kick you down to the ground or anything, at least not for fun. You can tell the developers genuinely want you to see things through, making the title's accessibility through the roof. This is a great thing that really works for the game Celeste is trying to be, and it's really easy to ignore for those alpha gamers who don't want to use it, much like myself, of course. And thanks to the chapter by chapter setup, the game's easy to pick up for a bit then put right back down. And even in the middle of chapters, the game will have midpoints where you can hop back in right at or relatively close to where you left off. All the more reason you should play this on the Switch. The player has the potential to overcome anything the game throws at it, and the game knows that because it trains the player well with clear, non-intrusive tutorials and the smoothest difficulty curve I've seen in a while. The growing challenges felt so natural to me the whole way through. I never once thought there was a difficulty spike of any kind over my playthrough because I was always growing. I was always growing alongside Madeline. As she was scaling the mountain more and more, so was I, and getting to the top seemed more plausible not only to her, but to me. Madeline is such a fantastic link between the player and the game, as her growth and journey can almost be one-to-one with the player of the game, and I love that. Because the game's designed to be such an imposing challenge to both parties, you can find something to relate with her not only narratively, but gameplay-wise. And isn't that so cool? It's a way to enhance the overall experience in a way that only a video game can do. It's art, not to mention inspiring. And due to the incredibly responsive and easy to understand controls, I'm always in command. Every death is my fault, and every victory is a direct result of my skill. Level design is ever changing while maintaining that smooth difficulty progression, and even aesthetically I'm always engaged. The game, while challenging, really challenging, is fair, which is very important. Heading deeper into the aesthetic aspects of the game, the sprite work is something to behold because environments, backgrounds, drink water, and all that jazz are jaw-dropping. There were a handful of times where I couldn't tell if something was a part of the background or not, causing just a few deaths, but that was rare enough to not be too big an issue over my playthrough. Characters, while simple, blend well with the style and look memorable, and when you see the hand-drawn portraits of them, the style really fits the game. Even the music works to help the player keep on pushing through the tough challenges and fits the mood with whatever's happening in the story. This game's soundtrack is so dynamic and expertly put together, making it a must listen. Very calming, mysterious, somber, anxious, motivating, happy, whatever the game calls for at the time, the soundtrack's right there. And due to the gameplay and story working hand in hand, the soundtrack heightening specific moments is just mwah. And it's crazy, even the B and C sides were fair in terms of their challenge and what the game expects you to be capable of at the time. Not to mention the remix tracks are so good, oh my god. I died this many times over the course of my playthrough, but it didn't feel like that, and that's when you know you've succeeded. The game's good at just about everything it's trying to do, almost too good. I never felt as if anything was cheap or went on for too long, all the way until the very end. Well, that is until I played the DLC chapter. This may be a bit of a hot take, but I didn't think this chapter was all too great when compared to the rest of the game. Sure, it's a beefy one, having over 100 screens or levels, a lot of new music and more story, but man, it just kept going and 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 going. Oh my god, we're still not done? So many of the screens just get too long to the point where it's not even fun, just frustrating. And that last screen especially, what the actual hell? I felt like the game had forgotten what made it so good to begin with. Sure, it was hard, but it wasn't unreasonable. This chapter honestly felt like the only difficulty spike, which sucked because it happened right at the end. Arguably not even because it was DLC that came a bit recently, so the game was fine as is. I don't know, is that just me? This one felt like a bit of a wrong turn, even if the story was pretty good. And while we're on the negatives, were the golden strawberries really necessary? In every stage, there are collectible strawberries which don't do anything too substantial, but are fun to find and relatively straightforward to collect. The challenge is clear once you figured it out, and while they require a lot of skill, you should get them in a matter of minutes. Fun extra challenge to an already satisfying game. Golden strawberries, on the other hand, require a perfect run through a stage to collect, and they get a straight up no from your boy. Some of these levels, more specifically the later ones, are way too long to demand you to go through them without dying. Keep in mind, you die in one hit. Not to mention they kinda go against the game's mindset. You're supposed to fail, and you're supposed to know that failing is okay. This is a game that wants you to fail and learn from that failure. That's how you grow and overcome it. So why the heck are you then gonna turn around and say, cool, now do it again, only perfect? Like, seriously? I got one for the first level, not the secret one that requires you not to dash because screw that noise, and I was done after that. These are pretty unreasonable and not worth it in the slightest. And they have the gall to put one in the DLC chapter? Get out of here with that crap. Regardless of the DLC not being for me, who knows? You could like it, from what I could tell other people did, so I'd say still give it a shot. Just don't marathon it like I did, holy crap. The chapter took me 4 hours on top of my 10-hour playthrough, so I guess the game's like 14 hours or so. Oops. And that's just a small issue alongside the whole golden strawberry situation, which is 100% optional. The game is a satisfying experience from beginning to end, and even if the story didn't exactly blow my mind or even get too emotional a response out of me, the way it links with gameplay along with the presentation icing on this sweet Celeste cake impressed me and invested me to the degree I was yearning for. And if you've been sleeping on this game much like myself, I suggest you change that, because there isn't a doubt in my mind that Celeste is anything but a work of art. That was certainly a great time and a reminder as to why I love indie games so much. There was clearly a lot of love poured into this game and I thoroughly enjoyed playing it the whole way through. Thank you to my peeps who couldn't stop talking about this game. I really appreciate you shilling great titles like this. And thank you for watching. Links are in the description for all my social media, including access to my Patreon. For just $1 a month, you get all the benefits, including early access to my future videos and voting on said future videos. Patrons voted for this to be the next indie game I look at, and they get to watch this video super early. If you're just another lovely viewer watching this when it goes public, my next review is up right now for my patrons, and you can watch that earlier than anyone else for just $1 along with many other benefits, including being thanked at the end of my videos. Thank you so much to the bank dudes, aka the best people on the planet, who go by the names of Alex520, Cleric Eric, Comic Foil, Corbett, Flowergar, Forever Phase 8, Gaius, Gentleman Gamer, Jacob Horner, James V, Katie, Kiara Loveday, Kippy7, Ludom James 115, Logan, Max Hockman, Michael Douglas, Mitchie, Renegade Master, Scott Appleman, Sean McTagg, Soul, Soracat, Steve Appleman, Tex-Mex, and Xenolith. You all are the best, and you viewers are also beautiful for giving me a chance. Gotta go now, be sure to drink plenty of water, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye!